Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar with the Southwest. I am Jordan Benadel. I'm a consultant with Mutual Ventures. For those of you who don't know, Mutual Ventures has been selected as the delivery partner by the Department for Education for this program. Myself and a number of other colleagues are working with all 9 clusters, including the Northeast Pathfinder on this program over the course of a few months, really. I'm the coach for the Southwest and another cluster, and I've been working with Vicky and the team across the Southwest region over the last few months. So just wanted to say hi and welcome. I'm just going to hand over to Vicky, who is the project manager on behalf of the Southwest and really has been leading this work on behalf of Wiltshire and Cornwall, the leading local authorities. So hi, Vicky.
Hi, thanks, Jordan. Welcome, everyone. We thought we would do a webinar today to help give some more generalised information to the staff and teams in our local authorities. This is a project that's been run at pace, so it's important that we're able to get outcomes to you in a variety of ways. This won't be the only webinar, and we are recording today, as you can see, but we do hope to offer you further dates in the future. You will also have a chance towards the end of the meeting to put some questions forward, and we'll answer as many as we can. If we can't get through to answer your question on today's webinar, don't worry, we will send out a communication answering all of the questions that we receive in. So thank you very much. Jordan, are we okay to start the presentation? Thank you. So the aims and objectives of today's session are to give you an overview of the Fostering, Retention and Recruitment Hub project, both a little bit of the history and the run-up to the project and the project overview for the Southwest. I want to talk to you a little bit about how we're going to implement our plans, and I've already mentioned that it's at pace, so you kind of get the idea that we're trying to work quite quickly on some of those, and how we're going to get your voice into those plans. And lastly, to give you a chance to have some questions answered if you have any, or put them forward that we can answer in due course. Next slide, please. So this is a slide from the Department for Education, and what it just gives you is an idea of where this project has come from. And in the not too distant past, we had the care review and then the stable homes built on love response. And some of the data and stuff that came through with that also came with an idea to increase the number of places available for children and young people, particularly with foster carers. And what we want is to ensure that we don't lose foster carers within that very early stage of making an initial contact and then putting in a formal application, which is where we have quite a lot of dropout in the system currently. So that's really the aim of the project, to hit that little start ground so that we retain as many foster carers in the process as we can. Next slide, please. And this kind of gives you an idea from, and the bit where the hub is going to work is from that inquiry, and for us in the Southwest, up to that very start of an initial visit. Okay, so that's the very, very first section of that contact with the prospective foster carer. And the aim of that is that we have a foster care support hub. We have some targeted communications campaign. There's also a section on Mockingbird expansion throughout the region. I'll talk just very slightly about that a little bit later on. And we also have some support that supports prospective foster carers from that very initial contact through to assessment. Many of you start your own foster caring support very early too. It's just about making sure there's something available in that single step before that as well. Next slide, please. So our work in the Southwest builds on a pilot that occurred in the Northeast. Now, the Northeast had a few months last year in which to plan and implement, and then they went live, as you can see, not very long ago on the 28th of September with their particular recruitment hub. There's a little bit of data here that gives you an idea on how successful their hub has been literally in the first few weeks, the first 4 weeks. Now, they've had 75 expressions of interest and 53 referrals. That doesn't mean anything unless you understand how many are coming through the Northeast generally. And that particular amount of interest equates to a So as you can see, that's actually a really pretty good turnout for the Northeast. They've also put up a support hub website, and you can see that that's received over 32,000 page visits. There's 4.1 views per user and page visits of 32,000 and 109,000 interactions there. They've also had a Facebook campaign along with Google Ads. They've gained some media coverage and some media partnerships, and they've done some work on YouTube as well as part of their comms campaign. And I will touch on that briefly today about the comms campaign that goes with that as well. But that's how it's worked for them in the Northeast. Now, in early summer of this year, around about June, July time, we were given the opportunity to be able to put in an expression of interest for the Southwest that we would also like to do a similar project to the Northeast. We then had the month of August to put together a proposal around a hub. And as you can see, that's quite a tight turnaround already. And that proposal went in early September, and we were given the green light go ahead at the start of October. So really, this project's not been going very long. And we didn't really have enough time to go out and do a completely co-produced proposal, although we did try and get out there as much as we have, and all of your local authorities at both DCS and lead link level have been feeding into this. But we really would like to have something that's more co-produced as we go through our implementation phase. So much of what I talk about today is still up for implementation and development and refining as we go through. So you will still have a chance to have a voice in the offer that we give in the Southwest. So our Southwest proposal includes a data and collection and analysis as part of the hub that we set up, a retention and recruitment hub that looks to recruit new foster carers for the entire region and offers a support level up to, as I said before, application, at which point the local authority takes over, a bespoke communications campaign, and there is some expansion of Mockingbird. And this is probably pretty much all I'll say about the Mockingbird expansion today, is that what the bid meant was that each of our local authorities in the Southwest will get an additional Mockingbird hub. So if you didn't have any, you'll get one. If you had some, you'll get an additional one. That's being run by the Fostering Network, pretty much separate to the retention and recruitment hub that we're doing. So there won't be too much detail about that today, other than to say that there is a coach for Mockingbird, Lillian Stevens, who will be linking directly with your local authorities on your Mockingbird hub. So that won't be coming through me. Next slide, please. Thank you. So when we decided in the Southwest that we would set up our hub, this is kind of the overview that we looked at for prospective foster care parents. And the first step there is that they make an initial contact. Now that, you know as well as I do, that many of that contact appears in a variety of formats. It may be by phone, it may be by email, it may be by one of the electronic forms from sites such as a website or social media of one form or another, or it might be from a face-to-face event, or it might be even via a local authority referral from another local authority, or even many of you have like a friends and family referral scheme. So it may be a referral that comes in from one of your existing foster carers. At that point, normally you as a local authority make a response to that inquiry. This is where the hub will make the response for the region. So that second step is that it enters the recruitment hub. It doesn't look any different, by the way, to your prospective foster carers very much at all. But you then get a regional response to that. We do an initial screening, much like you do in that first phone call back, at which point it will be the prospective foster carer will be allocated back to the local authority for which they will work with, and then you take over as you normally do. I think it's important to say here that all of the statutory obligations for the local authority, right from the data that you send back to the DFE and collect for your local authority, to the offer and safeguarding that you give through your support and to your foster carers. Sorry, please bear with my voice there before it disappears completely. Remains the same. None of that changes. This is almost an extra layer on top of what you currently do. There is a non-negotiable at this point here, and I think it's fair to say this right now, in that there has to be a single front door for that initial contact across the region. So currently you will have your own websites, your own phone numbers. Initially, we don't plan to change those, but we will set up and work with your systems so that they are directed to. And there's a little diagrammatic a little bit later on, so you can kind of hopefully get a better view of it. It might not come up very well on a small screen, so these slides will be shared with you afterwards, so you will get to have a better look at those as well. Next slide, please. This is potentially the new hub staffing structure, and it's important for me to mention here that this is a virtual hub. The Southwest has the largest geographical footprint of any area for any region, sorry, within England. And to have a actual placed hub would be very, very difficult, because where would you place it so that all of the staff and prospective foster carers, if they needed to, would attend? It simply wouldn't work like that. So the hub for the region will be virtual. These are potentially the staffing structure that we've got, and as I've said before, we're going through an implementation phase, so there is time to have a discussion and put forward comments via your local authority link lead if you want to feed into what you would like this to look like. There will be a hub lead that's recruited, an assistant hub lead, and foster care support practitioners who will work with making that initial contact back. As we've spoken already, there is a communications link, both with separate funding for the hub, and there will be a networking and support lead and a hub and data IT lead. There are two reasons for the hub and data IT lead and the networking support lead. The hub data IT lead needs to be in place because currently many of you store this very initial work on spreadsheets, because there isn't a particular place until a formal contact is made in Mosaic or Liquid Logic or Eclipse or is it Care Directive, I think, that's in Swindon, on those case management systems. So we are looking to set up a bespoke system that works for the hub, that will hopefully link in with your systems at that point at which you need it to, so that the spreadsheets are hopefully, fingers crossed, no longer required. And it will be bespoke designed, but obviously there needs to be an IT lead within the hub to work with that, but also to collect the data. And I've just sent out to the link leads in all of your local authorities the data KPIs that are potentially available for the Department for Education, and we need to be feeding back on those through December and early New Year. So again, if you want to have a look at those, talk to your link lead. They're there and available for you. The networking support lead and the hub's communication lead are there so that they can link with your comms as they currently are. And as it stands at the moment, we wish to make minimal change to your comms campaigns. We will be asking that there'll be a small addition to your branding, and that will be an addition of a hub branding that goes with yours. It won't overtake yours, it won't change anything, it will just link in with them. Next slide, please. We're going to try and zoom in on this a little bit. So this is our workflow for the hub. And it may or may not be particularly clear to you, but there are 2 steps for a prospective foster carer, the green step and the blue step. And that's pretty much what most of you have now. The green step is where they make their initial contact. The blue step is where you call back. Please excuse me a minute. I'm just going to push the door too because my dog's having a bark. I don't know if you can hear that or not. No. Cupboard instead. In terms of the green section, the purple blocks feed into that. That's the hub website, the social media and the events. Just to the left of that is the yellow section, and that's where anything that still comes to the local authority can then be fed into the hub. Won't be an extra step for the foster carer, but may well be a small step for local authority staff. There are then some possible options that happen to that initial inquiry, including how we call back, a keep warm facility that can be brought into at any part of the flow. And then the blue section is the structured callback that's given to a prospective foster carer. Are you able to scroll along slightly for me, Jordan? No. Okay. Don't worry. As I say, the slides will be shared with you. Yes, that's okay. Yeah, just that. But you can see then that there's a couple of options after that structured conversation. And while you can't see them there, they are the standard options that you would have. A straight referral for potential application, for initial visit, sorry, not potential application, a straight referral for initial visit. Potentially booking initial visits. There is a facility for that if needed within the hub workflow if we wanted to, but generally the initial visit will come back to you. And again, that keep warm facility or a potential for referral to maybe a slightly different offer of support, such as supported lodgings, maybe those sorts of things. And then that red section is actually your portal back into the hub's system management. So you can see what's going on, you can access your data. And the grey section is your case management systems such as Liquid Logic or Mosaic. And again, it's greyed out at the minute because we're still working on how that might look and work. But that's the general workflow of it. And pretty much it's going to work as it works at the moment. And there'll be no extra step for the prospective foster carer. The callback is aimed to be done within the 24 hours, as many of you do already, and should work pretty much as the systems that you have now, if not better. Next step, please. So as I've said before, this is a project that's working at pace. So we became aware that we were successful, along with 8 other clusters, by the way, in nationally in October. So we're not working on our own. And so that will make 10 in total by the time that you have the Northeast pilot that's up and running in there as well. Because this is working at pace and because we do want it to be co-produced, we've set up a series of groups. We have a strategic overboard group. So the steering group board that you see there that meets monthly. And this is a small senior group, links in with the DFE and Mutual Ventures as our delivery partner, and makes those strategic decisions where necessary. The most frequently meeting group, and it's been meeting for several fortnights now since the funding was agreed, is the operations board, and that meets fortnightly. This particular meeting goes out to every one of your local authority link leads. So whoever has been put forward from your local authority are invited to those operations board that meet on a fortnightly basis. And they've gone through things like allocations, looking at the main workflow, those sorts of things. In addition to that, and set up as needed, is 5 additional groups: HR and finance, data and IT, legal and information governance, comms project teams, all of which we ask your link leads to forward those meetings to you as and when they come up. And the 5th group on there is the local authority and fostering participation team. We're really keen to get the voice of the foster carer into this process. While we're right at the very start and we've gone through and set up those main flows, etc., it's been a bit tricky. But we will be asking your local authority leads for links to your lead, your foster caring groups and your ambassador leads, however that format might look for your local authority, to join that group so that they can start giving their comment and their work on the processes that we're setting up. This is particularly pertinent to the buddying and support system that we want to offer alongside it. So that's co-designed and co-produced. And also we want their input on that structured conversation and the initial contact form when they're set up. They're still in implementation phase. The implementation phase is planned out monthly to an idea of going live at the beginning of April 2024 for 1 year. During that year working, there will be work done to look at financing the project after that, because we've been given funding for that 1 year as it stands at the minute, which is really generally why we're asking you not to make massive changes to your fostering systems, and that we'll work alongside and on top of, with the exception of that single front door. I probably just want to say a little bit about the comms project team as well. So the comms project team will be working specifically with the communications campaign. So in addition to the funding we've been given and the proposal we put forward, the Department for Education are supporting us with a separate but joined funding for a comms campaign. And we'll have some direction over that. We don't know how much that will be yet. It will be worked out on a formula, probably something to do around the number of children and young people we have and the geography, those sorts of things. That's how the funding formula is based, potentially. And they will also give us a toolkit to support for that. That is built into our plan. We do have a full implementation plan. Again, it's a big document, so I couldn't put it into the PowerPoint here, but it is shared with your local authority leads on a fortnightly basis. So again, if you wish to see an update of that, talk to your link lead for your local authority and they'll be able to give that to you. The legal teams have already met and they've worked together on our collaboration agreements so that we can work together. And the data and IT project teams are the ones that will be called forth next, because they're about to work on our data sharing agreement as we go through into December. So that's kind of how they don't meet as regularly as the operations board, and they kind of dip in and dip out as they're needed for separate sections of the project and its implementation. Next slide, please. I have kind of mentioned this as well, but we are keen to involve the experienced foster carers in our fostering participation group for them to give their ideas and to be part of the discussion. So if you are a frontline practitioner that's regularly working with foster carers and they're asking you about this project, if they've heard about it on the grapevine, then yes, we will be looking to involve them in due course. And do feel free to put names forward to your link lead to forward on to me when we set that group up. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have around about half an hour of the meeting left, and this is really where you have a chance to put forward questions, and we will endeavour to try and answer them. There is still much up and running and it being implemented, so I don't always have all the answers to everything that you might ask, but I will try and do my best and tell you where we are within the project programme for this.
Thanks so much, Vicky. So I'm just going to give everyone a second just to think a little bit about what your questions might be about the program, anything that Vicky has covered today, or if there's anything additional that you've heard and you maybe want some clarification on, please do pop it in the chat and we can get going with the Q&A. Give everyone one more minute just to type out what I'm sure are very long questions. So we have a question that's come through. When do we find out who our local lead is, Vicky?
So they're already there already. So your leads are already set up for you. Usually it's gone down through your directors for children's services to your assistant directors, so deputy directors or uh, non-executive directors for most of you. They will have different titles in all the different local authorities, and then gone through for most of them to your fostering head of service is the link lead for most of them. I do have a list of names for them. It should be the same person that probably forwarded this to you. I'm not going to pop them up here, but I will, when I forward out this document, I will ask that link lead to make sure that they've made their name available to all of you. But there is one available for every local authority. And to be fair, if you don't get any joy there or you're not sure who it is, if you want to email me directly, and Jordan will pop my email in the chat in a second, then I'm happy to answer separately who they are and email you directly. That's fine.
Thanks, Vicky. We've got another one. Are you considering using a CRM for managing contacts?
Yes,
so I think that's
is
around
the
kind
answer.
of inquiries. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're looking at to set up a bespoke system. We're talking to a particular provider at the moment who would design that for us. We're also looking to talk to an additional provider around that. We've had some of the scoping work set up from that. The flow document that you saw there, that was set up in conjunction with a provider that's been paid to do some scoping work with us around how it would work. So the reason it looks so busy is because it's set up from a potential system point of view, essentially, rather than a foster carer or a worker point of view. So yes, we're looking to make sure that that also helps feed into a data dashboard. So rather than pulling off your for instance, the very basic data that we'd be looking at is the number of contacts we have, the number of those contacts that then make an application, and then those that convert, that are assessed and then convert into foster carers. So that's the very basic overview that we would look at in terms of that. So we're looking for a dashboard that would able to provide that for us regionally, and hopefully that you can access from each local authority as well. That is the aim. Obviously, it's not been produced yet, but that would make your data collections much easier too, as well as things like there'll be a link on that keep warm and those callback ideas for those people that initially don't go straight through the system.
Great stuff. Got another one around the go live date for the hub. When exactly is that?
The plan at the moment is the 1st of April. So all of you, I can feel the silence in the room, although we can't see any of that in there. Yes, we know it's working at pace, and we know that that is a pretty audacious goal. But it's the same for the other 9 clusters as well. And if it puts it in perspective for you, the Northeast did it in a shorter time than we've got.
Yeah,
so it is doable.
I think that's right. I appreciate, as I said earlier, having worked with a few of the other clusters, there is really a sense of things moving at pace, but the amount of work that has been done and the amount of ground that has been covered over the previous months, I think everyone's feeling really confident about the go live date in April. So it is a quick turnaround time. But people are keen to get up and running and to learn from each other. That's the other thing. There's 9 other places doing something similar. So it's an opportunity to see how different places are doing the same thing.
It is, and to build on that as well, we're not working in isolation. So both Jordan and myself attend regular meetings with the other 9 clusters, to share successes and challenges and learn from one another as well.
As well as the Northeast. So they've obviously got started earlier. They've done that initial lessons learned, and they are sharing information and learning about what worked and what could be done better. So it's helping the other clusters coming on slightly later get up and running quicker. So slightly different, well, actually related to the Northeast, there's a question around the increase in inquiries in the Northeast, and has that made a difference to the high dropout rate after initial inquiry?
I don't have the data for that yet. Is the answer to that. So I don't know. So we have, as we say, about 4 weeks data so far. The slide that I shared with you is the most up-to-date information that I have from the Northeast at the moment. It's a really good question, to be fair. And as soon as I have that data, I'll be sharing that in the operations leads groups as well, and then in further webinars. It would be really interesting to know that. I agree.
And just to kind of touch on that point again, this is something that the Northeast is in the early stages of. The data so far has been really positive, but this is obviously the thing that people are really interested in. And so everybody's kind of watching to see what happens there. But as I said, they're really good with sharing information, and hopefully we'll see that the increase statistically that we've seen in other areas of measurement will continue past into applications. Okay, great stuff. So there's a question around, so we will keep our own branding and websites, etc. But is the point then to just point any potential signups to the hub? How will that initial kind of comms process and marketing process work?
So there's actually 2 parts to that question. In terms of the branding, at some point coming through, there'll be a branding for the hub. And what we would kind of ask that you do is that you can join it into your branding. So, for example, if you are Wiltshire Local Authority and your branding for fostering might be Foster with Wiltshire, we would ask that you have your Foster with Wiltshire campaign branding, and then just underneath you in conjunction with South West Hub or something like that. In turn, the Southwest Hub will have Southwest Fostering Hub. And by the way, you can link on the Northeast and have a look to see what theirs looks like. And then underneath that, you will see it's working in conjunction. And then we'll have all the local authority hubs branding underneath. That's how it will work in terms of pictures and signs and websites, etc. The hub will have its own website. You will retain yours. In terms of how does that contact get from your contacts to ours? So if it's a contact that's coming through electronically or via the telephone, then those links will no longer be directed to you. They'll follow the same link as it appears from a foster carer, but they will go directly to the hub. So instead of coming to you, they'll go directly to the hub. So that won't appear any different for the foster carer. They'll have the same link. It just won't come directly to you yourselves. If it's one of those, and there will always be this, we will never stop these, a prospective foster carer that comes in to the local authority via a different telephone line or maybe via a live event, then there is provision in the hub system for you to take that referral as a local authority and push it to the hub so the hub calls back. So again, it appears no different for the prospective foster care and doesn't increase the step. It does mean as a local authority that for those rare cases where it's not coming in electronically, which is the vast majority of cases, that there may be a small extra step for you to log in and forward it on. I hope that answers that question.
Thank you, Vicky. So there's another question here. Many applicants contact us, being the local authorities, rather than IFAs when they have questions around local support or training or finance. Will the recruitment hub be able to answer these questions?
Yes, to a degree. It's something we've had a lot of conversation about. So you're right. The aim for this is that same reasons that they're coming to a local authority already, that different offer that they want from the local authority, we want to increase that. The aim of the entire programme for all the clusters is to increase local authority foster carers. So we do need to have that option there. The hub supports 15 local authorities, 14 if you assume the Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly are together. Therefore, we are going to have to be able to offer information on key areas for each local authority. We are mindful that we need to be careful how this works. So, for example, if this is on a website for the hub, then what we don't want is 15 sets of fees. We all know that the fees is the page they look at and gets the most hits. So what we don't want that on there. What we do want them to have though is a way to get to your fees. So it will probably work something either with a small amount of information or a drop down menu where they can click on a local authority specifically, and that simply links or directs them to your page for your information for fees. In terms of the actual answer, the phone answer for the hub, yes, they will be able to give some kind of information about the specific local authority that provider is, that foster carer is being directed to. And I'm anticipating the allocation question in a second here that I'll answer in a minute. But yes, they will be trained and have the availability to answer those questions regarding local authority specific offers.
While we're on that, shall we address the allocation question?
As it is there then. Okay, so we've had a lot of discussions about how allocations are going to work. Potentially, when we originally put the proposal in, simply because we needed to put the proposal in, we went for the fact that they would be allocated according to postcode. Now, what we do know is that that won't work for the Southwest by itself. The reason being is we have a number of very small local authorities for whom a good proportion of their foster carers are just outside of their actual local authority postcode, but still within their local area. So we needed to find a way for that to work. The initial proposals have gone through to your Link Leads group. And what we've come up with is a preference offer. It is slightly linked to postcode in the fact that if you're a prospective foster carer and you are, say, right down in Penzance, then really the only offer for you to local authority foster care is with Cornwall. If, however, you may be somewhere else, such as Whitchurch, then potentially you're bordering 2 or 3 local authorities, such as Bristol, but probably Bath and North East Somerset, and maybe South Gloss, that sort of thing. So that prospective foster carer would have a preference for those. Most prospective foster carers, when they come through, already know. So the conversation will probably go something like, where would you like to foster care for? And they may well say South Gloss. They're in that postcode. The system will tell them that that's okay. Yeah, job done. For the very rare occasion where there's one that doesn't know or doesn't have a preference, then we're looking at contingency plans to work with that. Generally, we're going to be keeping it quite simple, preference linked with postcode based, but they will have a chance to have some further information about that and have a chat and see what works best for them. In the operations group, we already decided that actually those that don't know and also sit on a border and have that option for 2 or 3 local authorities are actually quite few and far between. Most of them that come to this point already know where they want to go. But we do have contingencies in place to make sure that the allocations go to the correct place. We are also looking at potentially for those few cases, the chance of a regular meeting, an allocations meeting to just look at those additional ones as to how that might work in principle, so that there's a contingency plan if there is something that is more challenging to decide so that we don't lose them. Generally, I'm not seeing it changing in the way for those of you who are based around local authorities that often have foster carers that are just outside of your postcode based. We wouldn't envisage that changing. There's no design in the system to nab one another's foster carers. What we're looking to do is increase the pool, full stop, so that everyone gets some more, so that there's more available across the board. I hope that answers that for you.
Thank you, Vicky. There's another question just around fees and how that's going to work with the various fees across the 15 local authorities going through the hub.
Okay, two-pronged question, two-pronged answer again. First of all, there is no appetite within the Southwest at all to harmonise fees. So we are not looking to say that your fees need to remain the same as another local authority's fees. We simply don't have the capacity to set that up or the appetite within the region at a very senior level to do that at the moment. What we do want to do, though, is collect information around fees so that both senior leadership and your lead members as well as each local authorities are aware of what fees look like across the board. We already do a similar piece of work to this in the region based around agency work for social workers and what people pay. So it's not a new piece of work, it's just a new group to look at. What that will do as part of that is we would also like to look at the benefits that you offer. Now, that is something that the region would like to try and gain some harmony on. So, for instance, some of you offer council tax benefit to a greater or lesser degree. Some of you don't. Some of you offer support for leisure facilities within your local authorities. Some of you don't. And it may be that there are pieces of work that are done as a opportunity formed by the hub to look at that data and link with your leaders and push through some of those benefits so that we can really highlight to prospective foster carers the benefit of working with a local authority that you wouldn't get for an IFA. So an IFA can't offer you a council tax benefit, those sorts of things. However, we will be able to retain our different fee structures. There isn't a plan to change though, but we would like to share that information more widely and look at ways of helping support get benefits through. Because I don't know, some of you I know want council things like council tax benefits, but sometimes find it difficult to get it through the systems. And this should help support that where it's appropriate and possible to do.
Thanks, Vicky. So there's a question here that relates to data collection, and it's about how do you track where people are finding out about the service, which local authorities currently use to help them plan their spend around marketing and comms. So is that something that the hub will still be able to help them track?
Most definitely. So many of you will already be tracking both hits on website pages and different media. You'll be seeing which campaigns will work better than others, where you can target certain campaigns, where your referrals are coming through from, where people are hearing about you. All of that data you're already tracking. The aim is for the hub to do that as well. Hence, they have those roles of the networking and comms lead and the IT and data lead. So there will definitely be an aim for that to be recorded as well. What I would suggest is that if you get a chance to group together in your local authority and talk with your link leads, that you do have a look at those KPIs that we've sent out and see if there's anything missing on there that you think would really be beneficial to put in. And put that forward and bring that back to those meeting groups, because we have to, those KPIs that I've sent out are the ones that have come from the DFE, and we have a chance to look at them, adapt and change, put in our own, make it our own basically as part of the implementation procedure. But we do have to get it back to the DFE for the end of January. So there'll be a couple of meetings around that within that. But yeah, that gives you a time frame to have a look at those KPIs and make sure that the data that you want as a local authority is in there. And to make sure that we're given a really holistic point of view and you don't lose anything. Don't want anyone in the local authority to lose anything because of the project that we're doing here.
So there's another question that's also centered around data collection. So will there be one centralized data dashboard or separate local authority ones? How is all of that information being stored?
We are hoping, and I say that because we are at an implementation phase at the minute, planning phase. We are hoping to have one data dashboard, but you will have a login. So as a local authority, you would have a login to your section of that data dashboard. The hub will be able to see the whole region, and the structured leads for the hub, so Cornwall and Wiltshire, would be able to see the whole region. And then we do regional data collections on other areas and children's social care at the moment, and it would be shared with that particular network group, which is the Directors of Children's Services network group as well, so they would be able to see the regional data and report back on that. But yeah, the aim is to have it electronically on a dashboard via a portal that you can log in and see for your local authority, and that we can offer something that would also be able to be visualised and send a data report out regionally too.
Thanks, Vicky. So there's two questions here that are quite related. So it's around local, again, kind of marketing and recruitment. So can local authorities continue to manage their own physical and virtual recruitment events? And the second kind of part is, and if they do those events, are they able to take details at this point and continue on with the process, or do they need to pass that information back to the hub?
Okay, so yes, you continue on with the events that you do, and very much would encourage you to do so. If the hub suddenly started to take over that as a regional hub, then both your branding as a local authority would lose out, and we'd lose out on that pool of followers that you have. So we don't want to do that. So yep, continue to do your events and plan them for the year ahead as you would normally. When the hub is live for those events, we'd really like you to invite the hub rep to come along and join you. And there's only one or two hub reps, so it might be that they might not come to all of them if there's a big event, so for instance, Fostering Week or whatever, and everyone's doing something at the same time, they might not necessarily get there. But what that would do is give you both your offer and make you get the economies of scale from having the regional hub there as well. Yes, you can still take those referrals that happen at those live events. If we went back to the workflow, that's that little orange set of boxes right at the front from live events. You would take them, you would take their details like you do currently. And whereas before, when you got back to the office or wherever you go, you would give them a call back, then actually you'll give it to the hub and the hub will give them the call back. So yes, it has to go through the hub as a referral. Doesn't, however, look any different to the prospective foster carer. There is a small extra step for you as a local authority to get it into the hub if you get it live. Potentially, if the hub lead is there with you, you can collect your little written referrals and give them to the hub lead as they're there, and they can take them back. But yeah, it does need to go through the hub for that single front door, but it doesn't look any different for the prospective foster carers. And you would get that foster carer, by the way, I think is the aim that's going to be. So if it's your event and they're signing up to be interested in your local authority foster carer, then that's already that preference bit decided.
So a slightly related question, will IFA transfers be sent straight to local authority, or are those also going through the hub?
That's a good question. It is a question that has come up. It isn't one I've got an answer to yet. Yes, we do want those local authority transfers to come through. How we fit that into the hub isn't in the design as yet, but we are aware that it's out there and it's something that we've got to tweak. The plan is that the hub will be able to do that. And we'll be able to transfer them. The reason it has to go through the hub, and it will have to go through the hub, is because of the way that we're tracking the data and the data's recorded. That said, whether the process is exactly the same for that transfer or whether there's a tweak structured conversation we haven't actually put into the planning yet. It isn't something we've missed, though. It's just literally within the time frame that we've had, we haven't sorted that out yet. A good question. But yeah, we do intend to be able for the hub to deal with those in a way that gets them back to the local authority as quickly as possible.
Thanks, Vicky. And just to say thank you, everyone, for sending through all your questions. A lot are coming through and they're really interesting and really thought-provoking. I don't think we're going to have a chance to get through them all. I'll try get through as many as I can, but we will follow up on the ones that we don't get to. So we've got another question here, which is on a new topic. Have you thought about diversity and how the initial contact with regards to Asian, Muslim, Black, and Eastern Europeans will work? Are you offering a different service or response to embrace diversity?
It's a very good question, isn't it? I'm not going to say we haven't thought about diversity. The reason I know that we have is because of, obviously, depending on which local authority you're in, we do need certain different types of foster caring base. So there's vulnerable groups that we need to support, including LBG. TQ plus different ethnic minorities. So there is some thought, and we've had some minimal discussions around those. Again, it's not been planned into it yet. What we have done though is I've been round to about 8 or 9 local authorities so far and done what's known as a process visit. And taking information and details on your foster caring process and how it works. And then that will feed back into our design. I've still got a few more to do over the course of early December. And we'll feed that in. I do know that the Northeast were able to target some of their comms campaigns at specific groups in terms of recruitment for wherever need was. Excuse me, and potentially we could do the same for us. Would we have a different offer in terms of the structured conversation? I don't know, is the answer for that. I think the potential, I will put that forward to be in the design, is a possibility. There has been some discussion around how local authorities link with their communities. Some local authorities have made or do have good links with different groups within their communities, and we don't want to lose that, and how we could bring that into the hub as well is a potential thought. At this early stage in the planning, it is only a thought though. So we've got as far as a generalised workflow, and it is generalised. We haven't even decided on the structured conversation yet. We've looked at potential allocations. We've done a collaboration agreement so we can work together, and we're about to do a data sharing agreement within that, and we do have our KPIs. That pretty much sums up where we've got to so far, and we've had some conversations, as I've said, with suppliers in terms of a case management system. So those really nitty gritty details are coming out now as we speak. So that's a great question, and I can tell you that we will start to put it through into our working groups. As it stands at the moment, I don't know. Have we thought about it? Yes. Do I have an answer? No.
Thanks, Vicky. So just a little bit about the process. Will the hub be able to complete any initial police checks or screening, which for certain local authorities is currently completed before a home visit is booked?
That's a very good question as well. Again, this one has been discussed, but again, I don't have an answer for you. So some of you at the moment, you're right, do some very initial screenings in terms of that, and do go through checking through your case management systems. The reason in that is, and the reason I haven't got an answer for you for this one, is because how does it work in terms of our GDPR, etc. checks that we're going through? Because obviously we don't have that in place yet, because although we've done a collaboration agreement, we don't have a data sharing agreement in place yet, and hasn't gone through into information governance. That question has been raised in terms of our system. Again, that's not one that's in the main flow at the moment, but is something we're looking at how that potentially would work. Now, the reason I say how it potentially would work, because one possibility for this is that there is a number of local authorities that book their initial visit on that first conversation. Now, the way the main workflow hub is set up is for those local authorities that still want to do that. There are 2 ways that they can book that initial visit. They put forward slots to the hub, and the hub can fill that slots for them, or they are asked to join that conversation. So the telephone systems allow a local authority to join in that conversation, and it become a joint or diverted conversation. Potentially, those would be an option for that particular local authority to then be able to do that check. because it would be with that local authority at that point. Would that work for all? Is that something that we are actually going to go forward with in the long-term planning? And it does need to be built into the design and the systems that we have. I don't have confirmation of you yet, but it is something that was raised at the process visits. Yes, we are thinking about that and how we can make that work for the hub, because again, we don't want to add in that additional step for you if we can avoid it.
What information would the hub take from potential foster care applicants? What data is being collected?
Yeah, that's a very good question, isn't it? So the very initial contact forms will look very much like your current one. We've looked at a few, and we'll amalgamate one that's the same for the region, that takes very initial details such as name, contact details. Some of you ask about room, and if you're over 21, so we might have those details on there, a little bit about why you want to be or where you heard from them, that sort of thing. Really short form. That probably will remain pretty much unchanged for the rest of you. In terms of the structured conversation, part of the process visit, each local authority was asked to forward their list of, for want of a better word, questions and items that they cover in their own conversations when you do that initial callback. And then we will look to, first of all, pick out commonalities so that we have a common set of questions. And then it doesn't seem like it's going to be too much of an ask that for certain local authorities, if they have local authority specific questions, that when someone is calling them back, there is capacity within the system to go through those additional ones for that particular local authority if needed. It just needs to be pre-designed in advance to fit into the system. And that will be the same sort of information, sorry, that you currently record. So if you take a look at whatever you're recording at the moment, we're looking for something to be pretty much the same.
Thanks, Vicky. So just based on time and your poor voice seems to be giving out, I think we can probably call the session. There are still a few questions that have gone, well, a number of questions that have gone unanswered, which we can pick up and get some answers back to you. But just to say thank you so much for attending and engaging. I also feel like I've learned a lot actually, which is really great. And there's been a really high level of engagement in the Q&A. So thank you from me.
Can I just check that you've popped my email address in the chat for them?
I haven't, but what I will do is I'm not 100% sure I can. Yes,
right,
I can.
they can't. Yeah, you can.
If you give me 1 second, I can pop that in, or if not, I will send a follow-up email to attendees.
That would be great. Thank you very much. Thank you all very much for coming. I do appreciate it. I do apologise for my voice. I hope that was informative. We will be in contact, but do touch base. Sorry.
Oh no, okay. I think we'll call it there just so Vicky can recover her voice. Thank you so much, everyone. We really appreciate it, and I will send Vicky's email address in a follow-up email.